Well, hey everyone, welcome back for another virtual cooking class. My name is Kate Watts. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist with Live Life Well, your employee well-being team. And we're going to be wrapping up National Nutrition Month today by making some fish tacos. So I'm very excited about this one because I get to have it for lunch and it sounds delicious. Just what I'm in the mood for today. So we're going to be doing a really simple two-part dish, and then it comes together really quickly at the end. I love this recipe because you can make these salsa ahead of time, omitting the avocado, throwing that in last minute. But if you've already done this salsa, you'll see that's going to take up the bulk of our time today. The fish cooks so quickly. So fish or seafood is a great way to get in some lean protein with some heart healthy fat, and it's going to cook really quickly. So it's a great option for a weeknight meal. Now our recipe today calls for mahi. My store didn't have it this time around and I didn't go searching. So I'm actually using cod today. You could also use tilapia. You all know that I love to substitute. I never use the ingredients in the recipe I send you. So feel free to use what you have on hand, and also to alter things to your taste preferences. So the first thing we're going to do is actually heat up our pan so that after we season our fish, we can go ahead and throw it on to sear right away. Then we'll get to making our avocado-mango salsa. So I'm just going to turn my heat on to medium-high. And we're going to let that heat up while we get to making our marinade. So we're just going to do a dry rub today with some different spices and some fresh garlic. Now, I typically use, as you know, the already minced garlic in the jar so that it's nice, easy, ready to go. But I thought today we'd go through chopping garlic together. So the recipe calls for 2 cloves. This is a bulb of garlic, right? And this is a clove. So here's my 1 clove, and then I'm going to break off another clove. And it just breaks apart, and all this extra papery covering, you're just going to toss. All right, so let me get my knife here. Now, with the casing that's on it, I usually just use the back of my knife and kind of crunch that open. You can see it just kind of pops open, and then it's a lot easier to peel off. Just going to peel off the coating. I'm sure there's a technical name for that. And we're going to do that with both of our cloves of garlic here. And then you're also going to see the end where it's connected. I'm going to chop that off. I don't want to eat that. And I do, while I like the convenience of the already store-bought minced garlic, I really do like the fresh taste of and smell of a fresh clove of garlic. So I'm going to cut off the ends there, and then we're just going to do a quick mince. Remember, with our knife skills, we're wanting to use the claw so that we're keeping our fingers back out of the way of where we're chopping and just kind of moving along in a tilted motion, rocking motion like this. So I'm just going to rock up and down. And I'm using a really small knife because this is a really small item that I'm cutting. And, there are all kinds of gadgets and things that you can use. I actually do have, I'll show you on the other one, a little garlic press thing that minces it up really nice and fine for you. So there's our garlic there, 1 clove. So you can use whatever gadget you want. I find that most of the time, this cutting board and a knife is all I need to get through what I have. It's just as easy to use that as it is to have to clean another item that I've used. But I do have one of those fancy little garlic press things that is going to get it really nice and fine. And this would really be great like for dressings. But I'll go ahead and put my clove right in here. And then as I squeeze this out, it's going to really finely mince it. Just need a little bit of hand grip strength. And then I'm going to take my knife and put that into our little marinade here. So whatever works for you, if you're a gadget person or you're a cut everything yourself person, whatever gets the job done, right? Okay, so now we're just going to add our spices to this little bowl. Then I'm going to rub that into our fish. So we're going to do a tablespoon of cumin. This is one of my favorite spices. When I roast veggies in the oven, which is one of my favorite ways to prepare vegetables, just good old salt and pepper. Normally I use avocado oil or some grapeseed oil. And I like to add some cumin, sometimes paprika, just depends on my mood. All right, so there's our tablespoon of that. And then I believe we're doing, let me check our recipe, a half tablespoon or half teaspoon of everything else. So we'll do salt, paprika, and chili powder. We'll do half teaspoon salt. Okay. And again, you know, when you're cooking at home, the nice thing is you can adjust this to your taste preferences. So if you like a little bit more of something, a little bit less of something else. And paprika. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of mix this together a little bit. And this is going to be more than enough, more than, to season our little 1 pound of fish. Okay, so I'm going to move this wooden cutting board out of the way for a minute. I like to use either a glass or a, well, let's see, what would you call these? A glass cutting board or something that's going to be a lot easier to clean, like this plastic one. Because when you're dealing with raw meat, it's just a lot harder to get your like bamboo or wooden cutting boards completely clean. So I tend to save those for my vegetables and other non-animal product items, and then switch to something like this really thin little plastic mat for my raw meat. So we've got our cod here. I'm just going to take a paper towel and dab it dry, get a little bit more of that moisture out. You could use a clean dish towel as well. Just make sure you wash the dish towel and don't use it for anything else. So we're going to press some of that moisture out of the fish. All right, and then we're going to season it. So I'm going to use my raw hand and mash it in. I'm going to keep this hand clean so I can handle my pan. So I'm just going to take a pinch of our garlic and seasonings and just really coat it on there well. Remember, we're making tacos, so you know you want the color of, you know, that taco seasoning on here. I would maybe even add a little more paprika. That's like, to me, the real distinguishable taco seasoning flavor. And it's great to make your own seasonings like this because you really can save yourself so much sodium compared to the packets that you would buy at the store, the seasoning packets. And most of the time, you're going to have all of those seasonings in your home. If you cook, you know, fairly often, I mean, you see that it was only 3 spices and salt that I used for this blend, plus some garlic. So we're going to coat that really good. Do the other side. Just going to dump the rest on here. All right. So our white plain fish is gone and our beautiful taco seasoning colored meat is now ready to get pan seared. All right. So I'm going to do the flesh side down first. And so the back side is the skin side. So I want for when I thin it, for my fish to finish with the skin side on the bottom. And that's just because our recipe tells us to, well, our recipe tells us to do it a couple minutes on both sides. For cod, it takes a little bit longer than mahi-mahi. So I'm actually going to do about 3 to 4 minutes on the top side, and then I'm going to finish it off 4 to 5 minutes on the back side. So let's just do a quick little hover test to see if our pan is hot. Meaning I'm just going to make sure I've got a nice hot pan, and I do. And then I'm going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil, and if I see that that kind of sizzles a bit, then my pan is ready for my sear. So 1 tablespoon of olive oil into our pan. All right, looks good. And then I'm just going to toss my fish on. Bring this over here. And I hear a sizzle, so that is good. Got back on the heat. While that's sizzling, I'm going to quickly clean up my raw meat station and wash my hands. All right, so now that we've got our fish going, I'm gonna let that again sear for about 3 minutes in the pan. And I set a timer for everything, even if it's just for 3 minutes. I need that audible reminder a lot of times. All right, so I'm gonna get back to our chopping board here, our cutting board. Clear off our spices. While our fish is cooking, we're gonna go ahead and toss together this salsa. It's the avocado-mango salsa. We're gonna have some fresh herb. I'm using cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, like the recipe calls for, you could use fresh parsley or thyme, or you could omit it altogether. But I think the fresh herbs here really makes a huge difference for a homemade salsa. And then we're gonna do fresh lime juice, and let's get to chopping. So first thing I'm gonna do is our avocado. And I don't know how many of you cook with avocados a lot. They've become quite a popular heart healthy fat. But to know if an avocado is ripe, the easiest way is simply do the thumb test. So you're just going to pick up the avocado you're looking to buy, push your thumb into the skin, and you should be able to dent it in a little bit. Now, you don't want it to be too mushy, but if it's firm and you really can't push your thumb into it at all, it's not quite ripe yet. Another way to tell is this little piece on the top, the little stem on the top. You can flick that off and you can actually see the fruit underneath. And so you really can see that little bit of green coming through. If it's still brown, it's not quite right. So as you can see, this one's brown. Hopefully you can see that. If you need to ripen your avocado, you can put it on your countertop in a brown paper bag and leave it out on the counter, and it will ripen faster. You could also add an apple to that paper bag with the avocado, and it's really going to get ripe fast. If you want to slow down the ripening of your avocado or keep it ripe and not let it get overripe, then you can store them in the fridge. So counter or fridge, both are fine. Just depends on how ripe your avocado is and when you're planning to use it. So let's get into this avocado. I'm just going to start by cutting it in half. And I'm going to go long ways, but it doesn't matter either way. All right, and then once you've cut it all the way around, you're just going to twist it around the pit, and it's going to open up. Okay, nice big pit. Okay, so some people like to take their knife, chop into the pit, twist, and take it out. I'm just a little wary of that method. So I usually take a spoon and just scoop around the pit and pop it out. I don't want to lose too much of the flesh, so I'm trying to be gentle here. All right, toss that to the side. And now we're going to slice our avocado for the salsa. My timer just went off for the fish, so I'm going to look at it. I'm just going to flip and see the bottom, see if it's ready to be flipped over. Able to smell the spices now. All right, so looks like the bottom is good and crispy. Nice and crispy. We'll flip it over. Okay. I'm gonna let that go another 4 minutes. All right. So now that we've got our avocado like this, there's a few different ways you could continue with your spoon and scoop the whole thing out, especially if we're going to be mashing it onto avocado toast or into guacamole. Since we want slices, I'm going to carefully use my knife and actually create the slices in here before I scoop it out. I'm going to hold both sides and carefully cut slices. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to do cubes. I think that's going to make more sense for the salsa. So I'm going to go make a nice little grid. Same with this one. And actually, interesting little fact is that the avocado flesh that is directly up against the skin is the most nutrient packed, the darker green. And it makes sense because the darker, deeper colors of our food represent more phytonutrients inside of the food. So like your dark leafy greens, your deep dark purples. So where we see the darker green along the edge of the skin has more nutrient density than this lighter part. So when I'm using my spoon to scoop that out, I'm going to really try to get up next to the skin and get every bit of that darker green as I can. And as I'm doing this, I'm just going to dump that avocado right into our bowl. So I've just got kind of like cubes of avocado for my salsa. And then again, I'm just taking that spoon and like scooping out the flesh that's right up against the skin there. Okay. Let's do our other half, and then we'll check on our fish before we get into cutting up our mango. So let me know in the chat if you have any questions or comments today as we go through. These cooking classes are recorded and posted on the Live Life Well YouTube page. So if you can't catch them live or you want to refer back to them, you can watch on our YouTube channel, and the recipe is always in the description box below. So if you're watching online, check out the recipe below if you want to recreate this dish. Okay, that looks pretty good for that. So next thing we're going to get into is our mango, but first let's just peek at that shrimp. Excuse me. Not shrimp, fish. It looks good. I like mine crispy. Maybe you could go another minute. Sorry, it's falling apart a little bit on me, but hopefully you can see the good taco seasoning sear. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off the heat and turn off my burner. Okay. Smells really good. All right. I'm going to put that to the side. And we're going to use that same pan to toast up our tortillas here for our tacos in a minute. Let's finish our salsa. So let's get into mango. As you saw, I'd already cut up one mango. The recipe calls for 2/3 cup of mango and 1 cup of avocado. So I am going to use 2 mangoes total. And I think I probably could use 2 avocados too, but I'm just going to start with the one for lunch today. So for mangoes, let me know in the comments if you are an expert mango cutter, because it's a little tricky. The pit inside of a mango is a lot different than the pit we saw inside of the avocado. So this core is, well, as you'll see, not something we're going to be able to just pop out and remove. We're going to have to cut around. So I'm going to get this clean knife here. So typically you find the stem part, right? And you're going to cut so that, let's see, this would be the fat way. This would be the skinny way. So typically our core is going to be running down the center, right? So that when I'm facing it, I'm looking the skinny side, not the fat side. So with the skinny side, I'm going to cut on either side and try to get as close to that core or that pit as I can. And I'm just going to kind of use my knife to feel for it as best I can. This one's given me quite a big chunk here. Let's see. All right, so as you cut off, you can see this white part here is going to be our core or our pit. So see, I can push into the flesh easily, and I can't with that core there, okay? So we've got one nice big half, and then I'm going to do the other side. So that's where I normally start, and then you can start to carve around the pit as best you can. You might be able to get a few more chunks off, maybe more like slices. And if you cut into the pit, you're going to see it. So if I cut through it here, that's what we don't want, right? We're not going to eat this. It's very hard. We can cut all around, get all the flesh off that we can. But that's the pit running all the way through it. Okay. So what I typically do is take and score it just like I did the avocado into a grid. And so this is going to give us nice big cubes. So I'm going all the way down to the skin, but I'm not cutting through the skin. And then once I've gotten there, I can flip this inside out and you see all of our cubes there. And then if it's soft enough, depending on the ripeness, these will just pop right off. And you can just pop them right off with your hands, or you can use your knife and cut the cubes off of the skin like so. And then we're actually going to chop these up a little bit more fine for our salsa. So I'm just going to kind of gather them together and using the claw in a rocking motion with my knife, just go through a few times till I get them about the size that I want. One more pass here. Nothing super technical in this kitchen. I'm not a chef. I'm just a mom that cooks and loves food and nutrition. All right, so for this other one, another way I would maybe cut my mango is just into slices like you would an apple. I'm just going to cut all the way through the skin. And if I was snacking on this half the time, I'm just going to pick this up and eat it like I would an apple slice. Now, I wouldn't eat the skin, but I'm going to eat it, okay, more like a watermelon. Or if you're wanting to use it for a recipe, then I would turn it on its side and I would cut as close to the skin as possible and get that flesh out, and then I can toss the skin. The best way when you're dealing with a really slippery fruit like this too is to go really slow and stick to your comfort level of knife skills, and to try to find the flattest side of the fruit to lay it down when you're cutting, and then trying to hold on to the drier side instead of the really wet, slippery side. And sometimes you're not going to get all the flesh off for the sake of keeping your fingers, and that's fine. All right, so we're going to chop this up, get it into that salsa. One more pass, I think, to do it. All right. Get this out of the way. So the rest of our salsa, we're going to do some red onion. So let's cut that up quickly, just a fourth a cup. So we're not going to use the whole thing. I'm going to take off this peel of the onion. Cut off the top. I cut it in half. Probably could use a little bit bigger knife than this one. All right, peel off the rest there. Okay, so we're just gonna do a fine dice. I really probably only need half of this even. Let's put that aside. I'm not a big fan of these middle parts, so I'm just gonna toss those. And then I'm gonna find the flattest side of my produce. I'm gonna use my claw and I'm gonna cut into strips, and then I'm gonna go back and dice into smaller pieces. A nice sharp knife always helps. And if you want to even put that pointer finger out to help with that rocking motion a little bit more, I'm going as thin as I can with this red onion, because a big bite of that is a little strong, right? I do love some red onion though. I love the color it adds. Now, I didn't do my trick of keeping the onion together today, so you can see it's a lot more difficult to get that finer cut. Now, this is where like a nice little chopping device or gadget would come in handy, right? Okay. So we'll get our onion in there. We're going to do cilantro and lime juice. And I'm going to go ahead and heat that pan again, because in just a minute, we're going to want to toast those tortillas for our plated dish. So I'm just going to put it back on medium. I'm going to grab some cilantro. We just need a tablespoon. You can absolutely chop and eat the stems. They are edible. I personally don't really like the texture, so I like to just kind of strip the leaves off of a few stems. And that's what I'm going to chop. But again, if you've got some in there, totally edible, same flavor, just a different texture. All right, so let's get our teeny tiny knife, kind of roll this into a bunch. and chop it up from there. You know, you don't even really have to cut it for this salsa or chop it for this salsa. You could just throw the fresh herbs right in there. There's our cilantro. Let's get our lime. So the easiest way to juice a lime is to put a little elbow grease in first, roll it, get those juices loosened up. I have a nice little press here for my lime, so I'm going to cut it in half. But if you didn't, you would just want to maybe squeeze it into a bowl before putting it into your salsa in case you get any seeds loosened in there. You can pick them out before it goes into your recipe. It just calls for a tablespoon. So probably 1/2 would be fine, but I'm going to go ahead and just do both halves of my lime. Right. And then we could cut the other one for some garnish here. I'm going to cut off the ends, put it in half, cut it into wedges. We'll put that on our plate for our final product. Okay, so now that I've made a nice big mess, we're going to finish off our salsa by adding a tablespoon of lime juice. Mix this together. Look at those colors. That's so springy. The yellow and green and light purple. Just nice spring looking salsa. All right, let's make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, so we've got our avocado, mango, red onion, cilantro, lime juice. We got to do our green onions. So let's pop these in here. I'm going to cut off the ends of our green onions. And then I'm going to cut into small circles the white. And as I get to the light green, that's what I really like. Let's see what the recipe calls for. Finely chopped green onion. Okay, so we're going to do it all. So I'm going to go ahead all up to the light green. And I'm going to do just maybe 2 of the dark green stems. A lot of recipes will call, like if you're cooking with green onions, they'll want you to separate the white and light green from the dark green. And then you'll cook with the white and light green, more like root part of the green onion. And then you'll garnish with the dark green top. So I'm going to use both of it here. Just calls for 1/4 cup. Do a quick chop this way. Pop that into our salsa. All right. Looking good. Okay, so let's get to plating here. Got to finish this up. So the recipe calls for whole wheat tortillas. I'm going to use corn tortillas. It's just what I had at home today. It makes a huge difference to quickly zap it on the pan and heat it up a bit before we plate it. So I'm going to just toss those on there. Turn that heat up just a bit. You can hear the sizzle, and then you're going to start to see the bubbling of the tortilla a little bit. So let's clean this face. Get our plate. Yum. Love some tacos. That's one of our go-to meals on a weeknight. If we don't have anything else ready, we'll throw together some tacos or some quesadillas. All right, so we've got our plate. We've got our salsa ready to go. Give that one more stir. I'm going to cut up our fish here into some, actually I could probably just use my spatula, to some taco size portions. It just falls right apart. That looks so good. All right, let's get our tacos. So it's bubbled up a little bit for me, nice and warm. We'll do 2 today, 2 tacos. All right, let's get our fish on there. And our salsa. So you could obviously add other toppings. This is just keeping it so simple. Again, imagine if you already had this prepped in your fridge. You get home from work, you season your fish. Maybe you've already done that too. You throw them in the pan for 5-6 minutes. And you have dinner ready to go. Got some lime wedges on the side. I'm so excited for these. Hope y'all enjoyed this. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.